Welcome back to the Motivating Force podcast. I am host Sway, and real quick, before you continue on this video, please make sure you've watched the first half of this interview that we have with Bill Nelson, a Central Florida entrepreneur who's been in the business 35 years. And this second half of the interview is going to seem like we're jumping straight into the middle of a conversation, but we are. We didn't want to overload you guys with an hour and a half long episode, so we're going to keep it 2 parts for you. Please make sure you watch the first episode and then continue. Hope you enjoy. Touching back on like key lessons that you've learned, a lot of people relate opening up small businesses and starting up your own company with needing to have the understanding that you're going to go through a lot of sacrifice. And I'm pretty sure we kind of touched on it a little bit when you were talking about that scarcity of not being able to provide. Were there any real sacrifices that you had to go through when opening up either the beginning businesses or the one that you have right now?
There's a few different sacrifices, and a lot of that you can determine what they're going to be. For example, when I first started getting into business, I knew leaving the safety of my job and being in business for myself, that I had set my initial plan to do 3 partnerships before doing my own business.
Okay.
So my first partnership, I sacrificed that autonomy, and it almost felt like I was just working for somebody else, even though it was still my business. Mm-hmm. And same with the second and the third. But the third was a partnership where we built a business from the ground up. So it was more me.
Okay.
That sacrifice was when my partner came to me and said, let's sell it. I'll find the buyer. I need the money. I want to do XYZ. And even though I wasn't really ready to let go of that business and sell it, that was a choice that I made to have a partner. So instead of buying him out, and it's okay, everything happens for a reason. We went through that sale and we sold it. And then the final business that I was doing on my own, I used the capital raised from the first 3 businesses to start my own business. I just happened to change from retail to service when I did that for various reasons.
Yeah.
And those sacrifices, I used that partnership business income, which the sale provided me with 5 years of a good solid paycheck.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to build the business on my own, and a totally different environment going from retail to service. So it allowed me to learn the service business, establish it, and grow it. Whereas normally that sacrifice would have been, how do you put food on your table?
Yeah.
I had that from my partnership business.
Okay.
So that was a very structured safety net
that you built
in
for
order
yourself.
to build that business. What you do sacrifice, if you can call it a sacrifice, is time.
Oh, okay.
But you also sacrifice that time when you work for a corporation.
Exactly.
And have that safety net job, because
you're bound to
their discretion. If they want to employ you, if they don't, if they want you to work 20 hours this week or 60 hours this week, it's your obligation. So sacrifice time, okay, we'll call it that.
Okay, these are really great points, because it's also things that I wasn't thinking you were going to answer with. Because when I'm talking about sacrifice, it was that initial financial perspective of not being able to provide, or the time perspective as well. Because growing up, my mom's married to somebody who has opened up multiple businesses for himself, and it's kind of like a legacy thing for him. And there's always those times where it's the struggle of not being able to they have to like skip a payment or do something with financial issues because they want to make sure that the rest of the company is paid for first. They want to make sure their employees are paid for. Then maybe they can't go eat out one night. They have to, eat what they got.
So
just little things, but then like there's the time like that you can't spend time with your kids because you're working 7 days a week, you're working 12 hours a day. But those are also things that, in your case, I guess you had the foresight to plan ahead. You didn't want that to happen, so you had those safety nets, which is also very important for people to realize now if they're starting to plan a future with them opening up whatever business it is for themselves, that they should keep in mind that, I've always heard the first year you don't make a profit really when you open up a business, right?
Typically, you don't go into the black for 3 years.
Okay. So it's things like that as well.
Average.
That could also play into that sacrifice mentality that you have to be able to put up with not a pause, but like a plateau. And then you can start to make money after, things are paid off and all that.
I call it delayed gratification.
Well, that's a perfect way to put it because we actually talked about that.
And that delayed gratification is don't spend it till you have it.
Correct.
But a lot of people in today's society think that they deserve or they have to have that $1,600 new phone or that $45,000 race car, truck, whatever. Well, you don't have to have that. I don't consider those sacrifices, but I guess many people would. But those things should not be part of your life if you are going to open your own business. What should be first and foremost, as you mentioned, your parents having to put the business before maybe making that car payment.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a car payment, that doesn't become an issue.
Correct.
And I'm sure your parents did very well.
Mm-hmm.
They raised you, So that's an insight of who they are. Sacrifices that are made, I just don't really consider them sacrifices.
Yeah.
I think the biggest sacrifice that I made was maybe waiting too long because I didn't have the confidence and to put my family at risk and financially. Had I done that, I feel like I could be a lot further ahead than I am now, but I'm in a good spot.
Okay.
So I know that sounds like kind of both sides of the track, and it is. Yeah. But that's life.
But you're also keeping the positive mental attitude to your situation, what you're doing now. There's nothing wrong with it. Exactly. You got to keep that PMA that we always talk about. And it's like, because then you'll turn into the guy looking at his neighbor or his friend that opened up the internet business as a millionaire. And then you have a negative mentality towards the thing you created, the thing that's your baby, you know? He has a business that he's working for himself.
That's his
Why
deal.
does he have to be negative about it?
Correct.
Just be happy with what you got.
And you
but
should.
That's another
and you
point.
Should.
Yeah.
That's why when you say, the sacrifices that are made, to me, they're not necessarily sacrifices. They're a choice of living a certain way. And we'll leave that for after. I'll let you continue.
Well,
I'll answer questions, sir.
I mean, I like the way that you said that, though, because it's very based on the individual and depending on their core values and the personality traits that we already talked about, determines what they consider sacrifices. And in your case, it's very few. Now that we're transitioning off of that, let's try to give some advice to people that are seeking either the motivation or the confidence or the initial push to do something for themselves, to create that baby per se, that legacy for their family or their kids or whatever it is. Let's keep it simple. Let's do
read every week.
Okay, let's go.
Read every week. When I was a kid, I read Entrepreneur magazine.
Okay.
I read Forbes. A lot of the times Forbes I felt wasn't applicable to me, but it still gave me insight. When I was older and working and I would see somebody I worked in a gas station, so I saw somebody pull up in a really nice car, and I asked them, how did you afford that? What put you in that position? Do you work for somebody? And I asked those types of questions. And I would ask my bosses, what motivated you to become my boss?
Yeah.
What's your background? And continue to learn. I think that as an entrepreneur, you have to learn because you have so many hats to wear. You have to have a thirst for knowledge. And when you do that, you're going to grow that business. As far as the risk reward, that's something that can be learned, managed. If you're inclined to be in your own business, work towards it. Set goals for yourself, but don't be too stringent on yourself. If you set a goal to open your business in a year with $20,000 in savings, so you have a cushion, and it takes you 18 months, that's okay.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of different ways to get to the same place. And sometimes you have to make a detour.
Yeah.
You know, you might get on I-4 to go to Orlando, and you might take OBT to go to Orlando. But if there's a big accident on I-4, you might take OBT to go to Orlando, and they both will get you there. It's just making those adjustments and those choices to get you where you want to be. And read. That's what expands your mind, gets you going. You don't have to understand all of it, just basics.
Okay.
Because perfection is a great aim, and you have to be careful to not be too much of a perfectionist that there's that negative side of it.
Yeah.
And you guys actually got me hooked on a book where the guy explains it quite well.
Yeah.
And he uses the word dichotomy because it's that left and right balance.
Let me guess, is it the dichotomy of leadership?
And you can go back thousands of years, and it was yin and yang.
Yeah.
And there was, so all those concepts are the same concept. It's that balance of left and right. And if you can't just be one way. So do it.
Okay.
Just do it.
And then if you had to, let's look at the people that are listening to this as a younger form of yourself. You mentioned that you wish you would have done it sooner, right?
Correct.
How would you tell yourself, if you were talking to a young version of yourself, to find that confidence to make that jump? Because that was the biggest issue, right?
That was the biggest issue is the confidence. And that was, I would tell everybody out there, do it. Start writing it down. Make it a plan. Don't stick it on the back burner. Work hard. It's going to take a lot of hard work. Mm-hmm. And you can't be stuck on the 40-hour mindset.
Yeah.
You are going to be in a 24/7 mindset. And in Amway, they kind of taught you like you I don't know if that's still around, but
my mom was actually a part of it.
It was great teachers in that business.
Yeah.
And they said, one of the guys one point said, you can earn a living from 9 to 5. And then from 5 to 9, you can make a life. And from 9 to midnight, you can change your world. And basically what it is saying is you can work your 40-hour week and be average like everybody.
Yeah.
You can work a little bit harder and have some
nice
move up to the middle class. But if you really want to make it, you got to be willing to work till midnight.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to put in that effort is really what it boiled down to. And I believe in that, and part of that, like we talked about before, I have a hard time sitting still.
Yeah.
So that energy needs to be spent, and I spend it. I don't spend it watching football and drinking beer on Sunday. Nothing wrong with it, but that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm
constantly researching.
I would rather read Entrepreneur magazine and see how some other person got out there and rags to riches made it.
Yeah.
And that's inspiring to me, and that's That's the type of stuff I like.
And it makes a lot of sense when you're saying it like that, because I mean, I spoke about my stepdad so much this episode, but it's the only person I can relate to. Um, Something happened the other day where we went grocery shopping and he couldn't sit still doing the groceries. I'm like, you're picking out food for your house and stuff. And he's like, I hate doing this because I can be back at the shop, thinking of the things to expand the business or new things to add to the business to draw people in. And he's just constantly thinking of new things to grow and expand that business that he has. And you saying that, I mean, I guess that also adds with that hard work. And even if you're scared at first, doing all the hard work and a little bit of that like hustle and that grind, you get that pride that we already talked about.
Right.
And that becomes the confidence in yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you try and fail, try again.
Yeah. Don't just give up.
Don't give up.
Yeah. Find a new way to do it.
If you have to manage risk, don't risk your life savings if you can't handle that. So that's where I kind of took those baby steps. I proved myself as a great business operator working for other people. And then I partnered with some of those people.
Yeah.
And that reduced my risk exposure. Reduces your reward too, so be prepared.
And that was one of the questions.
And that's okay, because if that's what it takes for you to get that confidence, because really that's what it boils down to. And then with that confidence, you also don't want to be so confident that it becomes cocky.
Yep.
Because then you will definitely
shoot yourself in the foot.
Be on the wrong side of
yeah.
it, and you'll crash and burn, as opposed to, like you might have confidence to fly a plane, but if you don't have the knowledge to fly that plane, I highly recommend you pay a professional to drive it.
Yeah.
Because the mistake is not reversible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if the mistake is reversible, like you got on the bicycle and you fell over and you skinned your knee. Okay, well, your knee will heal. And that's not a tragic mistake. Yeah. It's something that's, you can get over that and keep going.
Yeah, you shouldn't just give up and never learn how to ride a bike. You should always just,
you pick the bike up and you do it again. And you do it again. And you keep trying. If you risk all of your financial resources and then some, you might be taking too big of a risk. I'm not a person that can go into bankruptcy and be fine with it. So I could only risk what I physically had, not somebody else's money. Because when you take a loan, that's somebody else's money you're playing with. Yeah. And I'm of the belief that you have to prioritize that, because it's your responsibility. You're the custodian of it. Yeah. If I borrow somebody's, what's the classic example? If I borrow my neighbor's lawnmower and it breaks while it's under my care, I have to fix it and return it to him fixed and better than he gave it to me. Yeah. Because that's respectful and responsible behavior in my book. I know a lot of people don't think that way, but then a lot of people are entrepreneurs.
Exactly. And it's very important too that, I guess, when you're looking at it as that, it's an independent business, it's your thing, you shouldn't be relying on other people. It's independently your responsibility.
Yours.
And I guess it's not, because you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask about having partners, and if that's something people should seek out if it's too scary of a jump for them. But like you mentioned, you're splitting the risk, but you're also splitting the reward. So it really narrows down to being their choice if that's the risk and reward they're willing to get.
A lot of partners are partners for those specific reasons. For example,
The security.
I had a partner that didn't have the time but had the money. So he partnered with me, who had the time and didn't have the money. Match made in heaven.
Yeah.
His money, my time. Made it work.
That's good.
And that's what a partnership is.
Okay.
The only advice I can give, back to reading, study up on it, because a partnership, like any partnership, whether it be business, personal, friendships, more so on the business side, if you're going to have a partnership, be so clear on who's responsible for what and what is going to happen if it goes wrong.
Correct.
So there's no question at all. When you research entrepreneurship, a lot of times they'll tell you if you don't have the money, the bank is an option, but you want to seek first monies from your personal funds, friends and family, which
still could be a little iffy too.
That's a little iffy, you know. And for me, it made it easy. I didn't have any, so
that option was null.
and that's where, you know, the partnership came in for me. And then through growing those partnerships responsibly, I was able to generate enough money to provide that safety net to do it on my own.
Okay. And then that key lesson of making sure you keep those around you trustworthy kind of people, motivational people that seek to that will be there for your growth and not to hold you back. Correct?
Ants that hang out with the anteater get eaten.
Okay.
So hang out with the other ants.
Okay.
And or hang out with the other anteaters if you're the anteater. Definitely you want to keep the right people around you. And in business, you're going to find that you might have to partner with somebody that you might not 100% align with. If you're aware of it, that's okay. Don't be blind. Not everybody's like you. Not everybody's going to have the same moral standard, motivational standard, and people will want to hold you responsible for their mistakes. And that's part of handling life, especially in business, because business is full of that. Yeah. And if you understand it, then you can handle yourself appropriately and address those concerns before and as they come up, and that'll keep you safe.
To take us out here, we're pretty much done with the interview. I just wanted to throw out one question for you and for the people listening, that they can also answer this down in the comment section. But I don't want to get too political with this one. This one just comes to mind with the state of the nation and the world. But seeing how Justin and I always like to go to the small businesses first, you know, having family that we understand how it is to have a business, like a local shop or whatever it is. We tend to always go to like restaurants or stores, shops, because we also like the relationship that we can have with the owners, and the same way that you talked about it growing up, that you formed those bonds with people. The way that quarantine has been handled in general in the United States, wherever, all I've been seeing recently is how small businesses haven't been getting the funds needed, or they haven't been able to open up because they're not essential businesses. How do you think, or if you think, there's been a negative impact on small businesses as a whole? Because right now you said that you're an essential business, so you haven't been too negatively affected by it. But I don't know if you see it as like the community of small businesses or local shops or anything.
There is a big impact. And for a lot of small businesses, it's a huge negative impact, because most of your food businesses are small businesses. Yeah. The regional aspect is something that we talked about earlier, and that is why a lot of times food businesses, because they can't mail you a fresh cheeseburger through Amazon shipping. Yeah. So you go to that local pizzeria or, you know, food establishment or hangout place, bar, and they employ a lot of people. They create a lot of economy. And yes, I believe they've probably been impacted the worst and the strongest. It's like the sun rising.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the government that did it. It's what happened. The government has placed mandates. Whether I agree with them or not, they're there. They place mandates on sales tax. They place mandates every single day, even without the pandemic, that creates those issues, and there's different ways to look at it, view it, as far as the mask mandate, the business closed mandate. I would say it is what it is. We just have to grow past it. I think that those small businesses, barring some major shift in our governmental system, that will rebound.
Yeah.
And that's part of that entrepreneurial spirit where they'll just come back stronger than ever with a vengeance.
Okay.
And hopefully that answers that question.
It does. It does, and it also sparks up just a little question that I had. Because, that was a great answer. But now, do you think it's going to rely on the shoulders of the CEOs or the business owners of those smaller shops that are being closed down? Let's say if it is the restaurants. Do you think now it relies on how innovative they can be and their thought process on how to evolve with the time?
That's what an entrepreneur would do, is take an adverse situation such as what we've gone through since the beginning of 2020 and make the most of it. So we've seen a lot of innovation in those areas. And even though I said that food industry, entertainment industry has been the hardest hit, doesn't mean they've been wiped out.
Yeah.
They are obviously still there, and they're innovating and making those changes to adjust for the time being. When they can reopen and we can fully enjoy them, that'll be a great day. The answer to your question, though, I think you were kind of leading towards who shoulders the responsibility. And there's like everything, two sides, that dichotomy, the entrepreneur obviously is the one that's going to seize the opportunity to go further than we've ever seen before. On the flip side, you've got the government who does cap us on a lot of things and has forced a lot of them to close their doors, at least to the public. The government is going to bail out airlines with billions, and they should equally give billions to those smaller mom and pop establishments, because that's truly the backbone of America. So I think, to answer your question, ultimately, I'm not a fan of government being involved in business.
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, they are. So if they're going to step into that role, and our government's going to mandate that a business be closed because they know better than everybody else, then they also need to take that responsibility to make sure that those people can regain what was taken away from them and what was lost.
Yeah.
It's not the government's fault, so I don't want that to be misconstrued, because if the sun rises, the sun rises. If a virus comes along that nobody can predict, well, the government didn't cause that virus to be here, so
or did they? No,
it's not their fault, And yes, and an ode to your conspiracy theorists. The ultimately, on topic, that's what an entrepreneur does, and why America has become the greatest nation in the world, because we foster just that idea of taking adversity and making it better.
Yeah, that initiative, that innovative mentality and everything. Okay, well, I think that sums everything up. That was great. It was a pleasure having you here.
Appreciate it.
I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. We're going to be going back to our normal, scheduled programming soon. But we just really wanted you in here. We've been talking about having you in here for a while. It's something that people should take in mind when they are trying to start up a business for themselves, or even just trying to partner up with somebody. You have to have like key values or core values within yourself. There's personal traits you need to have, like the courage and confidence in yourself to even take that initial leap for yourself. Keeping in mind the life lessons that Bill shared with us here, it's very important that, there are things that are going to hit you from left field, and there's that massive accident on I-4 that you have to get off that main street that you thought you were going to take, and you have to take these detours and these side roads. These things are going to happen in life. Thank you so much again for coming in.
I appreciate it. Stay motivated.
Okay, everybody, feel free to like and subscribe to the page if you haven't done so already. Remember to share this with your friends and family, or even if you know somebody that's trying to start up a small business, feel free, go ahead, hit that share button, send this over to them. We'd greatly appreciate it. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Parler. All of those links are down in the description.
Sorry, if anybody has any specific questions, you guys can feel free to relay those to me, and I'll answer them if there's specific questions to starting a business or any of the background that we've talked about. So
they can go ahead and message that to us.
Leave that comment or message to you, and I'm sure between the two of you, you'll get that to me, and I will gladly share my experiences and help those people out. So.
Well, that's fantastic. You heard it here first. You can go ahead and message us on those social media platforms or comment down below, and we can reach out to him and get back to you guys about your business inquiries. In other words, our videos come out Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. EST. And until next time, go and get.